Welcome to Negotiating Happiness, the show that helps you find happiness, success, and balance in your work and life. I'm Adriana, your host for this journey into entrepreneurship and personal growth. We're broadcasting live on 107.7 and 105.3 FM in New Orleans as part of the United Public Radio Network. We explore the latest strategies, insights, and stories from successful entrepreneurs and experts. From managing stress to building a thriving business, we've got you covered. Good afternoon, everybody. It is June 24th, 2024. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. It's 1 o'clock in Eastern time here, so please grab your lunch, grab your coffee, and join us. Today we have another lovely guest, and I'm so excited. We get to talk all about the social media world and how to navigate in business. Hello, Kristina. How are you?
Oh, Adriana, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited that you were able to come on, and I can't wait to hear your wisdom on this topic. So let's dive in a little bit here. So who is Kristina? Kristina, this is your first time coming on to the show, and I'm super excited. I'm hoping that, after today, you're going to want to come on again. Let's do a quick intro here. So Kristina is a co-founder and CEO of The Social Snippet. She loves helping entrepreneurs and small businesses grow their communities online using social media and podcasting. Kristina has been working in social media for almost 10 years as a side hustle and finally realized it was her passion and calling to pair her extensive experience coaching with her love for social strategy. The Social Snippet was born with her co-founder Maria, and the rest is history. Kristina spends most of her days recording podcast episodes for the Build Your Digital Community podcast, coaching business owners on how to grow their businesses, or hosting events for local female entrepreneurs to grow. So speaking of events, I want to get this in early in here so that everybody knows. The Social Snippet has High Vibe Women events, which are the events for Canadian entrepreneur women to grow their communities and their network. They also have a Social Business Club, which is a membership for entrepreneurs who want to increase their visibility and grow online in an authentic way. So, Kristina, you've got lots going on here. How do you do it all?
Oh, that's so funny. Well, it's funny. I think that when you're doing stuff that you love doing, it never feels like it's that quote, like, do something you love and you never feel like you work at all. And that's kind of how I feel.
Exactly.
Everything I do is filled with so much joy.
Exactly. Oh, we've already got a viewer here. Melissa is coming in to say hello. Hi, Melissa. How are you? I'm so glad you were able to tune in. She's a dear friend.
Oh, that's so nice.
Big supporter, part of my community. So I'm really glad that they're all popping in. So Kristina, I think we connected maybe a couple of months ago, and it was sort of organic, and I love that. And that's how we got to kind of chatting, and I got to know some of your connections. I love networking, and I'm really glad that you're one of those business owners and entrepreneurs that also loves that. So how did you get to, do so many things and have so much going on here? So tell me a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, so definitely community has been kind of the core piece of it. I started a side hustle kind of in throughout the pandemic of being a personal development coach. I have a leadership background. That's kind of what I spent most of my 20s doing, is managing high performing teams and coaching, and loved it. And during COVID, a lot of people had some time. So I got to do some one-on-one coaching with people, do Myers-Briggs with people. It was the best. And my business partner Maria, was my virtual assistant, and we would do kind of all of our graphics together, all of our social together. And it was amazing how much it had really taken off. All of my sales were on Instagram. I was doing like all of these, everything like really like was on Instagram with a small audience. And what we realized was, when we wanted to teach more business owners that was possible for them too, and that they didn't need a big following, they just needed a good community. And so we started the Social Snippet in May of 2021, and we've scaled our agency. We have over 85 clients that we help with social media and podcasting. And then we also noticed that there was this appetite of like really women needing to connect with each other, entrepreneurial women. We had some amazing entrepreneurial women friends, and we saw that there was just so much loneliness in this space. And so that's why we created High Vibe Women, was to just get women kind of connected with each other, and building those relationships that can foster referrals, foster business long term. And so that's been kind of my journey, has been over these last 3 years, has been taking this business kind of from just like an idea to now Marie and I are both full-time in the business. We've got a large team, and we're always growing and working with new people. But what's really, really cool about it is the impact that we have by helping entrepreneurs think about their communities differently, and think about not being so worried about virality, but actually being worried about community, and actually selling to people who will buy from you.
Oh, sorry guys, we've got some technical difficulties here. I said I was saying that I love having people like you on here, because your experience, which is much larger than mine, is able to kind of back me up when I say that it doesn't matter if you go viral, and depending on what stage of business you're in, you are not, maybe you're not ready for it and you lose momentum, or it just won't do anything for you, depending on what kind of business you are, how you provide your services, when and where, right? So I
Totally.
100% agree. I mean, community is way better than a following, because a following doesn't necessarily guarantee, your clients, and not only your clients, but your long-term plan. Like, what is your long-term plan for your business? Do you want to be in business for 2 years, or do you want to be in business for, 50? It depends. It
Yeah.
depends on what you decide to build. And unfortunately, it does take so much time to build this, to, the effort, the resources, the time, the research that goes into, making some of this content. So it's crazy to me that people are still very much on that, like, I want to go viral train. I want to go viral. But yeah.
Yeah. Adriana, if I can add to that, I was just gonna say, like, I kind of have two examples that I think really speak to that. One being that I have a friend who owns a candle business, and she had a major influencer post about, like, a major Canadian influencer post about her candles, and it blew up her business in the worst way. Like, she didn't have enough supply. She didn't have the systems in place that would be helpful for those types of sales. Like, it was just very, like, it was very humbling for her. Like, she had people who were upset, like, and that was really interesting, because it really brought to light the fact that, like, virality actually wasn't what she was looking for. Some exposure was great, but what she needed to do was actually build better back end systems in her business so that she could build some of these things, and that stuff takes time. And the second thing is, I did go viral in a video one time, and it was actually like one of the worst experiences I've ever had as an entrepreneur. Like, very negative. People were quite rude. And, even though I got 50,000, 60,000 views, it really didn't move the needle in my business. But then I had a reel that I posted recently that had 600 views, and I got 2 clients from it. That,
Yeah.
to me, that's a winning formula, right? When you have a
Mhm.
reel that
Mhm.
resonates with your ideal client, that's more important than the virality that comes from reels that might not resonate with your ideal people.
Right, and that's exactly what I mean when I say that it could blow up your business in the wrong way, especially when we don't, you don't have your back end figured out, or you don't have, your client. I always talk about the client experience even with my clients, right? That's what I do, is I help improve the back end, and how you handle all of these, giant orders, or maybe lack of, or depending on which side of the spectrum you're on. But that is 100% what can happen. I'm sorry to hear that you had that experience, obviously. And people are rude, because everybody is just a keyboard warrior when they're at home, right?
But the truth of it is that it's like, it's yes, that, and the fact that something that's always given me a lot of solace as a business owner is that, like, nobody who is doing more than me in business is judging me. So it's not like anybody who's running seven-figure businesses that I'm like aspiring for is looking at my reels being like, "Eesh," like, that's not what people are doing. And so I think that's a really important business lesson for us to remember, is that, like, really, we shouldn't be taking criticism from people we wouldn't trade lives with, right? Like, we should only
Well,
be taking feedback from people who we would trade with.
what a great You know, what a great lesson. What a smart thing to say. I love that. And I want to say it again. So, nobody who is doing more than you is criticizing you,
Nobody.
right? Nobody, because those people don't have time to be petty on the internet. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, Adriana,
Honestly.
I've had this experience too where, I'll have people who are building agencies or are new social media managers and they're like, "Oh, you saw my video. Like that must have been so cringy for you." And I'm like, "Do you think I care? Like, do you think that if that resonates with you, that resonates with you. If that's the way you want to do it, that's the way you want to do it." Or like, I'm even thinking about some of our clients who they're always so fearful. Like I'll pull up their Instagram and they're like, like, "Oh my gosh, like, are you going to give me feedback?" And I'm like, "I might give you feedback, but I don't know anything about your craft." So it's not like,
Right.
today we're so lucky we're working with friends of ours who run a luxury IV lounge closely. And we were talking about this at lunch that it's like, I don't know how to do IVs. I'm not judging the way that she puts in IVs. Like, so it's okay. We all have our own craft and no one who is doing more than us is judging us. And so that's really important. And that's why I think seeking that virality really comes from that like wanting of like affirmation from people. But there's also this huge downside that comes with virality. And that sometimes is like more than people can bear for their mental health. And so I think
Yeah.
it's about actually just focusing on those community building measures rather than being so fearful of virality and trying to make money off of that.
Right, right. That's exactly it. I think that we often forget that social media is supposed to be used as a tool when we start living in it, right? And I've talked to a couple of entrepreneurs recently that have told me, "Hey, so sorry I'm getting back to your DMs so late, but I've taken a break." And I'm like, "Good for you. Good for you that you've taken a break, and good for you that you're reevaluating how much time you need to put into this." And I think what people keep forgetting is that um, these are all channels that are owned by different people. These are also businesses, right?
Yeah.
We just happen to have that social aspect intertwined in it where people get to say whatever it is that they please, right? So take it with a grain of salt when you're doing these things. And like you said, when you're in your craft and you know what you're talking about, I don't know anything about the different industries that you're in. Why would I be judging that?
Mhm.
And also, you can't please everybody, and you have to realize at some point that each one of us is not part of that everybody or not part of their niche, and that's okay, right? That's okay. But I will tell you why I find that clients have a hard time with this is because they don't understand their own audience. So they have a
Mhm,
hard
mhm.
time with this because they're still figuring out who that particular great, perfect, ideal audience is. And if you're not speaking to that audience, you're right, they're getting pulled in every which direction, right? Like, do
Totally.
you find that? Do you find that that's the case?
Big time. And I think that's why it's really important. Like, I know most business courses, like if you ever take like an online program or anything like that, like they're the first people who will say to you something um, something like, make a client avatar, name them, like, do they have Starbucks? Do they play lacrosse on the weekends? Like, all of these things. That's important for sure. But I think you almost can't market until you know who your ideal client is because it's just not worth it for you to have all of these people following you if it's not going to make a difference or move the needle. So for
Right.
example, like one of my former clients, one of my coaching clients, she was a real estate agent and she was a very successful realtor, loved her real estate business, but just like had a calling for something different. And so she started this personal development company for kids, like that basically taught kids how to like meditate and like that kind of thing. So she just changed her Instagram, like to like be like from houses to this. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm hemorrhaging followers. Like this is insane. Like how did I lose so many followers?" I'm like, because these people don't care about
Right.
children's meditations. Like, and
Right.
so it's better to start from zero and have 100 people who care about your craft than have 10 million who are never going to buy from you. And I've even
Right.
seen this with clients where we worked with a client and still do for many things, but one of the things is she sells a $15 product and she can't sell it. Like, and she can't sell it because no one on Instagram wants to buy it from her. And
Hmm.
that's not her fault, but I think it's really figuring out like how do you bring people into your orbit that really are going to move the needle and who are actually going to buy from you and they're not going to just be people who are just there.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is the difference between you doing things on your own and hitting that plateau and getting somebody who knows what they're doing and helping you,
Yeah.
get past that plateau. And I say this all the time, maybe you're not at that stage where you can invest the money back in your business, but it is important. And I always say, right, like I tried to provide as much information as possible to people. I said, do you even have the professional dashboard on your Instagram? Or do you go on Meta on Facebook and look at who your audience is? Do you, do you talk to some of your clients? Have you ever done a little bit of research and say, hey, what's the first thing you notice when you look at my socials? These
Yeah.
are all really great tools to start with. And once you get to the point where you need somebody like you, Kristina, then you
Mhm.
can present, this information to you to say, how do I, how do I refine this? How can you help me
Mhm.
move this needle better now that I have this kind of information? But I think everybody needs to get really up close and personal with either, how are you presenting yourself to the world? How are you presenting your services to the world? What else can you do? Is your website a part of this? Is your website something that people want to stay on once they get there? Like, there's so many things
Yeah.
that kind of stem off from social media that we could all get help with, right?
Well, one of the things I often hear from people, and I think like if you're listening to this, something that you've probably struggled with, because I even sometimes struggle with it, is this idea of like, what do I post for these people? Like, I
Mhm.
I might know who my ideal client is, but what do they want? And like, this is like the most simple advice I'm ever going to give anybody is like, ask them, like, ask the people what they want. And then the other thing
Yeah,
is that if you are getting feedback from clients, ideal customers, family members who you would ideally want to sell to, friends you would ideally want to sell to, write that feedback down and use that as your like your propellant for what you're posting. So for example, like I think something that's really interesting about entrepreneurs is that we all think that our zone of genius is everyone's. So we are all so scared to give information that's too basic. And what we need to remember is that we're the experts and our audience is not. And so
right,
otherwise they wouldn't be outsourcing to us.
right,
So it's really important that we go back to, ideally especially if our audience is beginners, we go back to the beginning and we ask questions. We, write things down that people are saying. Like I'm shocked how many people don't know how to do certain things on social sometimes. That's fine. But because that's my gifting. And then there's the things because social's constantly changing. Even today, I read something and I sent it to my business partner and I was like, never ends. The saga never ends with us on Instagram. But what's really cool about that is that now we can use that information with our audience. So
right.
always trying to find those ways that we can add value back to our audience is by really keeping it basic and trying to figure out what they're saying, because what their problems are, because that will really help us hone in on the content and make sure you're talking to the right people. And an example I have of this, Adriana, is we used to sell a course, and this is before we had the Social Business Club, but we used to sell this course, and I love this course. Like this course could take somebody from like not knowing how to log on Instagram to like probably being like quite proficient, like probably close to like me and Maria's level. And so I was like, you could probably be a social media manager after this. And we would sell this course for $1,000. And I was like, this is a steal. People should be running with this. Everyone who took the course had huge results. We ran many beta groups and we had a lot of trouble selling it. A lot. And then when we figured out the reason why, one was we were selling at the wrong price point for the audience we wanted. Someone who is new in Instagram does not value $1,000 for that. So
Right,
they're not going to be buying it. Two, we were speaking to the wrong audience. Our audience that we've built up is more experienced. Typically, our audience is members or people who are ready for agency services.
right.
So so we were just talking to the wrong audience. Now I'm very confident that we would be able to sell a course like that. Was not our intention, but it was really interesting for us to actually think about the impact that having the wrong audience had on us. We did all the launch things. We know how to do all these things. Like
Right,
there was no
right.
reason why we wouldn't be successful, but we didn't have the right audience. And so that's why it's important for you to know your audience so that you can ask these questions and figure out like, are they the right people for you to be buying or selling to?
Right, and I said this, too, in I think last year, one of the very first episodes that I did is really important to, even though you are experiencing, a failed launch or something that didn't quite go your way, don't just pack it in and forget about it, or don't just start pouring in all of this time to redo it and relaunch and, over and over. You have to do this like postmortem analysis to
Yeah.
understand where did we go wrong, and again, you might not have gone wrong anywhere in the steps. It's just who you're presenting it to, how you're doing it, and when, right?
Yes.
And this same thing happens for events too, not just courses, right? But are
Everything.
typically courses are typically a lot of you know, investment before, right? Whereas with even with events, the planning and whatnot, right? But
Mhm.
sometimes it could be quick events, it could be workshops, and you're not putting in as much time before. However, it's still time consuming and you still need to analyze, like, why did this sell? Because this has really good information. We also have to remember that we are bombarded with
Yeah.
information daily. We process so much information that our brains can't possibly keep up. I don't care
Mhm.
what anybody says, our brains are overloaded. They're overloaded, they're done, they're
No,
fried.
definitely. But actually, Adriana, like a big piece of this too is that like it's it's not only courses or events, it's also posts. Like
Right.
people will post something and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, I should never post again because my reel got 1 view." It'd be really hard for a reel to get 1 view, but ask your partners to watch them. But it's like these things where like we get so overwhelmed by like failure and that it makes
Mhm.
us stop. And it's like being a kid again, right? Like when we're, playing a sport and we're bad at soccer. If we just never play soccer again, it's never going to get better. And so it's
Right.
the same thing with social where it's like we always need to see like what works. And Adriana, what works for you on social is not what works for me. And Maria and I find this all the time, like where when we're coaching clients, like people will be like, okay, I want a game plan. I want a game plan from like A to Z about like how I'm going to do this. And we're like, we can help with that. But there are so many factors at play. Like, are you going to show up in stories? Are you going to nurture your audience? Are you going to respond to people's comments? Are you going to
Right.
be in the DMs with them? Like we can make a great post, but what's the next step? And like, so one of the things I really encourage our clients is like not to think of bad posts as bad posts. I love the term silent launches. It takes away the little failure aspect of it. But the other thing I think too is also thinking about everything as information. Like there's no such thing as a bad post. It's all information. I would love to post social media tips every single day. That would be my best life. Unfortunately, that is not what my audience wants from me. And they do not want to watch my social media tips. They love lifestyle content. They love the entrepreneurial content. They love the stuff I'm
Yeah.
doing with High Vibe Women. So if I really want to post social tips, I need to find a way to do it that falls in line with what my audience wants. And so I
Right.
don't I don't pretend to be everything to all people. And so I think it's really important for us to remember that nothing is bad information on social. It's really just about figuring out how to maximize it. And when we see success in one area, how do we replicate it?
Right.
That's really the kind of wind I would put sales behind for sure.
Yeah, so, I agree. I agree with what you're saying. It all makes sense to me. What would you say to somebody take my account, for example. I don't have a lot of followers. I think there's about 800 followers. I love every single one of them. I'm not, but how so if you're starting kind of at this, you're not quite at the beginning, but you're not, anywhere in any crazy stages. What would you say to a business owner, an entrepreneur? Like where would you put your resources?
So if I was getting started, would I put my resources?
Where would you
So
put your resources?
yeah, so I just want to just like quickly, Adriana, too, like just want to say, if you were in a room filled with 800 people, then you were speaking your message, how would you feel?
Obviously amazing, and I've heard this analogy before.
Yeah.
Totally. We are looking at it. And see, I fall victim to this too, this trap
Yeah.
of like, numbers. I agree with you. If you were in a
Yeah.
room with 800 people and they were hearing your message, you wouldn't be knocking your numbers at all. But
Mhm.
I know that some of those followers, like you said, are not my ideal,
Totally.
people, are not the people that would either propel my business and not to say that they don't have any other interest or purpose. It's
No.
just I'm thinking, what would you say to an entrepreneur that is not quite at the beginning, but not quite where they would want to be with their community? Where would you put your resources to make a difference in this community that they're building?
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to say one quick mindset thing and then I'm going to give some tangible tools because I'm like a tangible woman. But like,
Wonderful.
yeah, sometimes people like love a mindset thing, but I just want to say like
Yeah.
if people are not happy at the 800, they're not going to be happy at the 10,000. And
Fair.
so
That's fair.
that's just something I have to say because I also fall victim to this. I have 5,700 followers and I have clients who have quite literally 30 times the amount of followers I do. And we run their accounts. And do I know how to grow an Instagram? Yes, I do. Do I do these activities every single day? No, because that's not actually what I think is going to make me money. And
Right.
so when I ask myself, okay, what am I going to do on social that's going to really move the needle for my business? I know it's actually talking with my ideal clients. I know it's actually engaging with them. When we're searching for something in our business, it is often we're most likely to find it if we start showing the leadership of doing it. So I would say if you're in a situation where you have a follower count that you're not like obsessed with, and you're like, I feel like I'm posting and I'm not getting the results I'm looking for, and it's taking up a lot of time. I want to firstly say you don't have to be on every platform. That's one thing, is figuring out a platform that you love to be on, where you actually like find it kind of fun and where your ideal client is. I love the term party where your people are. So for example, right? It's cute.
That's amazing. Party warrior people. That is great. I'm going to use that.
Please do, because honestly, I think one of the things I see the most when I do consults with people, Adriana, is that like people will be like, "Oh, I'm looking to really target 65-year-old women, and my TikTok campaign is going to be so good." And I'm like, that isn't where I would put my money. Like, and
Yeah.
I'm a huge believer of like we don't have Alex Hormozy style teams yet. And if you don't, then you need to be crafty about where you're spending your time. So even for
Yeah.
me, I have a TikTok. I don't use it for anything but looking at golden
Same.
retriever videos,
Same. Yeah. Yeah.
right? We just
Yeah.
need a healthy little,
Yeah. Yeah. For
but
me,
for
TikTok is so foreign. Like
yes.
I enjoy watching it, but that is not where my audience lies. And I'm thankful because I'm like thinking about how do I put myself out there on TikTok? I would not be able to. I
But
would not
even
be able to.
if TikTok stresses you out and your ideal client is there, you don't need to be there either. You know what I mean? Like that's
Mhm.
another thing too, where it's like it is so I always use this example, but when we started the social snippet, reels didn't exist. Reels were not there. And about a
Yeah.
1 month in, these weird rectangular videos came out. And we were like, oh my goodness, this is probably going to change some things for us. And it surely did.
Yeah.
And what was so interesting was at the beginning, I don't know if you remember, Adriana, reels were dancing and pointing.
Yeah.
And you would point, you would dance, and you'd be like, oh, look at me. Like,
It was
and
all about the trending sound. Like if you didn't
yes,
have the trending sound, it wasn't going anywhere.
going nowhere.
Yeah.
And I would have clients who would send me these dancing videos and they looked like I was holding them up at gunpoint doing it. Like it was horrible. And I would be like, I don't want to post this because this doesn't even look good. Like it's like not like you're not in the energy of someone who someone's going to buy from.
Yeah.
So if I want you, people want to buy from happy people. People want to buy from people who look like they know what they're doing, who know like what their craft is. And so for me, it's like really figuring out like how do you like to make content? And
Yeah.
sometimes that's written. Sometimes and maybe you're a LinkedIn maven. Maybe it's not video. Maybe it is video and they're short snippets. Like so it's figuring out really how to maximize your time and spending the time doing that. Because
Yeah.
honestly, I feel like too many people spend way too much time doing too many things. So they don't see results anywhere because it's scattered focus. So I think
Yes.
choosing one platform you love, if I'm struggling with social, I'm choosing one platform I love. I'm going all in there. I'm looking at people who I really respect. I'm seeing what they're doing to motivate their community and kind of get excited about that. Not copying, just taking a look. And then
Yeah.
I'm leveraging one strategy on social.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And funny enough, I've made comments in the last couple of episodes about how I've seen growth in my Instagram account in the last couple of months, and I've gotten quite a few clients from there. And I was shocked because up until then, my website was my lead generator, and it was just it was just refreshing. It was starting to show. I had been, consistent for some time, and even though it wasn't anything crazy, I literally started out with I just want to have one post a week where I'm consistent and I put out some information out there that I really want people to know. And it started showing, and it did. And
Yeah.
I had clients that said, I scoured your Instagram account and I've seen your posts and I see what you talk about. I'm like, great, right? But I'm also a solopreneur that is not looking to go viral, that is not looking to have, 50 leads a week, because I just wouldn't be able to handle that. So that's where I think people tend to blur the lines, is where they don't know what they're looking for and they don't have that awareness of what do you actually need to do. And I love that you're saying, scattered focus. That's a thing that happens not only with social
Totally.
media, but in marketing in general, and in in my other area, in tech. They have a scattered focus. They want to install every single platform ever. They want to implement every single platform ever, and they all overlap, and they're all expensive, and
Yeah.
they all tend to do typically the same thing. So it happens. It happens a lot as an entrepreneur, because our brains are always going and they're always thinking of things. And sometimes we just need that person to kind of pull us back and say, hey, let's have some sort of strategy in place, or some sort of plan that we can stick to, that is, uh, tangible and realistic, right? So I love
100%.
that you talk about that. We're halfway through here, so we're just going to do a quick station intro. So for
Okay.
those of you that are just tuning in, you are listening to Negotiating Happiness, and we are live on the United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. And some of our shows are actually on Roku TV as well, if you wanted to sit back, relax, and watch us on your big screen. We are live right now on the radio, but also on 8 different platforms. So if you guys have any questions or comments, please, submit your comment and we'll feature you, and we'll try and answer any questions you may have. I'm here with the lovely Kristina from the Social Snippet. We're talking all about building a community, not just a following. We're talking about socials. We're talking about business entrepreneurs, about events for entrepreneurial women. And I forgot to do this at the beginning, but Kristina, tell us a little bit about where you are locally and who your clients are and kind of where they're from.
Yeah, so I live in Waterloo, in Ontario, Canada, which is the best. I love our little region. I know we're close to each other, Adriana, and we still have to meet in person.
Yeah. I
But
know, we
yeah,
have to do that.
I know, no excuse. But I work with clients all over the world. We have a client in Australia, we have a client in Mexico, we've got a client everywhere, and all over the US and Canada. We have about 85 clients we work with day in and day out. And then, but one of my other side passions is bringing together Canadian entrepreneurial women through the High Vibe Women events. So highvibewomen.ca, and we run 2 100-person events a year, and then a bunch of little pop-ups that I love. So those are kind of the things that keep me super busy.
Amazing. So if you, just to slow it down for everybody, it's highvibewomen.ca if you wanted to check out some of the events there. If you are local, or if you are in Ontario and want to, come join some of these events, these wonderful women who are looking to network and learn. I'm all about that. I want to do a lot more in-person events. I do feel like I'm at the point where I'm either stressing out about client work or stressing about my own life, and then stressing out that I'm not doing enough. So I'm just kind of my calendar starting to just like fuse together.
Yeah.
I mean, it always is, but I think it's time for a reset, because summer's always crazy. And I think doing it before the summer rush might be a little bit better than waiting until the end, and just winging it. But when's your next event, Kristina?
So our next big event, we have one on July 7th. That'll be about 30 people at Proof in Kitchener-Waterloo. But our next big event will be at the museum on October 26th. And so tickets will be on
Ooh.
sale on July 15th. And then, so that'll be
Mhm.
100 women. So excited about it. We have like the most amazing swag bags on earth, the most incredible speakers. It's going to be so great. So yeah, I have a huge passion for bringing together women. And Adriana, even what you're saying around like, needing a reset, having those communities of people is so important to be able to like
Yeah.
maintain perspective. I can't tell you how many times I've been in, being in business a few years, you meet a few people and you're kind of like, oh, like I have so much to do. Like, when will this be done? Like, when's the grind over? None of
Yeah.
us know. And so we're all in it together, and we all connect on that.
It's kind of scary though if the grind is ever over, if you think about it. It means the pipeline's drying up. So let's not wish for that. I just want a little bit more of a leisurely grind if that's
Yes, fair.
possible. And it also depends, right? It depends on what you're looking for. I had a really interesting conversation one time with an entrepreneur who had to scale down
Yeah,
because she realized that it just wasn't what she wanted. She didn't want to manage 15 people. She was fine with managing 3. And you have to realize more numbers also means more costs and, expenses and time spent dealing with that or administrative things and so on and so forth. So this was closer to the beginning of my journey where I just kind of it helped me mind shift a little bit where I'm like, wait, I'm always chasing like the up, but I'm not chasing the ideal. So chasing the up and chasing what your ideal is very different things, right? So
100%.
let's put that into like community context. So
Yeah.
what should people aim for in terms of community? Like when you look at a person's following or community or accounts, what are some indicators of success for you?
Mhm. Yeah, so there's so many things to say because I think it's so different for so many different people. But like one of the things
Mhm.
that comes to mind for me when I look at people's accounts and I'm like, oh, they've got a good community. There are people who get a lot of engagement. So there are
Mm,
people are commenting on their posts, people are DMing them. I was joking about this a few weeks ago. I was in the US and I went shooting for the first time. I'd never seen a gun ever before. And so one of my friends in the US was like, let me take you shooting. And it was very casual, but I posted this video and I think I got something like 40 DMs from this video. And I'm like, ooh, like I'm not a gun woman. Like this is like off brand for me. But what was interesting was it showed me how much people were interested in like kind of what I was up to and like what I was doing while traveling. And so it's interesting. I think community can look in a bunch of different ways, but I think engagement's one of the key ways you can see successful community. And then you also want to ask yourself, like, do you have super fans? Like, are there people
mm,
who, whenever you post that you're selling something, are they people who ask you questions? Do they DM you? Are they like, what's the situation there? Like, are they involved? That's really
yeah.
important. And because those are the people I like. I love social media. I'll say this till I'm blue in the face, but honestly, like the best way to get business is referral. And
Yeah.
so if
Yeah.
that's the case, then how do you build an amazing referral network? And so social is the start of that. But from there, it's also like, how do you nurture people? Like, how many people are repeat buyers? What's the lifetime value of a buyer? Thinking about some of those things.
Right. And that makes so much sense to me. But also I just remember I think I gave 2 referrals last week and I directed those people to their Instagram accounts. So
Yeah,
it does matter. So even when it is a referral, it does matter how you put them into contact. And I mean, I typically do the corporate thing and I introduce people via email too, but it it's like what's your calling card, right? So once you have
totally.
a good calling card like your Instagram account, I don't know, your Facebook, your TikTok, whatever that may be, that helps give this person that was just referred with your name a kind of a taste of what it is that you do or what you're like. And
Yeah.
I do think that people appreciate some of the personal things on there. I personally struggle with where's the line, so I tend to err on the side of caution where I'm
Yeah.
just like, oh, maybe I won't post, what Zach and I are doing, my son.
Mm,
But I have a bunch of content from my trip. I took a 3-week trip and I'm just kind of like, I gotta post it. I gotta post it. I was posting some stories here and there so people kind of knew I was away.
yeah.
They knew I was out of office, but it's kind of like, oh, what do I post? Like, is this going to be boring for people? Am I not shooting the right kind of content? And I think I just need to do it and get over it and just be
Totally.
like, this is just me. If you work with me, this is just me.
And we have to remember that, like, so a few things there I'm just going to quickly say is like, one, we need to remember that people buy from people. So
Yeah.
it's really important for us to, like, you don't need to go on there and tell everyone like your menstrual cycle calendar, but you can go on there and you can tell them information that like makes them feel connected to you.
Yeah.
I talk
Yeah.
a lot about the entrepreneurial stuff that I do. I talk about my dog Patrick. I'm not talking about anything too private. And anything that fuels the line for me. Like I don't typically talk about anything political. I don't talk about really too much values based stuff. I just don't want to get involved. That's fine. That's my personal choice. I also don't
Yeah.
care if people do it. You know, it doesn't really make a difference to me. So we think it's really
Right.
about finding that line for
Right.
yourself where it's not like I feel cringy and this is like bad kind of thing, but more like what feels good for you and what feels like exciting, because otherwise you're just not going to post anything, and that like paralysis takes away from the opportunity.
Yeah.
And I was also going to say too, Adriana, like
Right.
you have no idea who's watching you when you're posting on Instagram. So you might be like, I'm posting and I'm not seeing any traction. And like, and I've had this many times where actually it was funny. This woman reached out recently to do flowers for High Vibe Women. And I'm so excited about this collaboration. And she was like, I have been following your business since day one. Like, and I was like, who are you? I've never seen you. I've never even seen your name before. She's like, I don't engage
Yeah.
much, but she knew everything about me and Maria and our business. And that was really cool to see because it was such a cool like idea of the fact that like you have no
Yeah.
idea who's waiting to work with you, or how many times I've been told that like our services are on people's vision boards. Like, wow,
Yeah.
you might be on someone's vision board. You have no idea.
Yeah.
So just
Yeah.
remembering that, like in terms of impact, like there's a lot of potential always that like you're actually making much more impact than you see on social. And so not being like obsessed with the numbers will be helpful with that.
Right. I agree. I agree. And I think I had set a goal for myself. I'm pretty transparent. I was like, I think I want to hit 1,000 followers by this year. And I think slowly as the year's gone, you know, like the days have passed, I'm like, I don't really think it matters if it's 1,000 or if it's, 2 more followers than what I have now. I think I just want people that genuinely want to see the content, or the
Mhm.
people that like, I don't want bots. I don't want people that are just gonna, you know, I guess follow it for the wrong reasons. I don't even know if that's possible with the industry that
Yeah.
I'm in, but you know what I'm saying. I think I just want people that genuinely want to see, what is this about? Can I learn something? Can we work in the future? Can we collab? I'm also super open to networking. So even if it is people from my industry, I think there's space for everybody to come in and work together. It's just very interesting to see how it's always numbers. Numbers drive up
Totally.
everything, especially with things like sponsorships. And, it's kind of like, what do you have to show for it? And what you're talking about is a lot of storytelling. So because I've worked and have been around copywriters, I probably understood that a lot sooner than other people, which I'm really thankful for. So storytelling is really important when you are trying to sell, because people do buy from people,
Mhm.
right? But when people don't understand that there has to be some storytelling involved, they just focus on the numbers, right?
Yes.
That's the only metric that they have.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So true. And I think again, it's so hard because even with my own clients, like it's like, what's the ROI? And it's like sometimes things take so much time to explain to people, and that like people need to see things like the stats up like 14 times before buying. So you're not going to post one time and make a sale. That's just, it's not
No,
that likely. So
no.
it's again, it's those reps of building that community. And the other thing I was going to say too is that when you're networking, whether that be on social or off, you're not only networking with the person you're talking to, you're networking with their network. So
Yes.
even for like me, for example, I'm a super referrer. Like I give referrals like it's my day job. I probably do 2 or 3 a day. I meet so many new people. I always leave every new conversation with, what do you need in your business right now? I
Right.
get wonderful answers from that. Hey, I need someone. Do you know someone who does ads? I need an assistant. I need a podcast. I've had people be like, we're done talking, and they're like, I really need someone to help me with my podcast management. And I'm like, me? And they're like, oh, I didn't know you did podcast management because it's social
Yeah.
snippet. And I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Like, okay, good to know for me to finesse my own messaging. Like,
Right.
it's crazy. Sometimes we don't even know like who's in our network. And like even an example, I posted on Instagram the other day because we're looking for someone to embroider some sweaters. And my team had been hunting for people because I preemptively bought the sweaters. It was an error. I should have ordered them. I bought them. And now I need these sweaters embroidered. So I have all these sweaters, and I'm like, and my team cannot find someone who can do this. I post on Instagram. I'm like, who will embroider these sweaters for me? I had 18 people reach out being like, hey, I
Yeah.
know somebody. I have a friend. I know somebody. Like, you can be that person for somebody. So don't
Yeah.
sell yourself short if you're posting on social and it's not making impact, because you have no idea. It is kind of like your little business card. It is a way for
Yeah.
people to be connecting with you, and you have no idea what people are looking for, and they need your unique solution to the problem.
Yeah, and like I said, it's you can't be everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay, right? The moment you get to that I guess, point in your business, you start feeling grateful that you can say it's okay, like that would have not worked out, or you wouldn't have been happy, I wouldn't have been happy. We're not each other's cup of tea, and that's okay. And that's kind of how socials work. Somebody's gonna like what you're posting, and other people are not, and that's okay. That's why building a community is more important, to be with those people that are your cup of tea versus those people that are just going to be there as a number. They're not really, propelling you forward or anything. They might actually propel you backwards, because negativity, I feel like it just seeps off of the screen sometimes, right?
Totally. And that's such a human social media, like, at its core is a reflection of humanity in my
Yeah.
experience, right? Like, you get the
Yeah.
best, you get the worst, you get the most amazing things, you get those puppy
Yeah.
videos, you get the baby saving videos, you get it all. But what's so true about social, like, at its core, is we don't like everybody, and that's okay. So there's so
Yeah.
many social media managers. Like, everywhere I look, there's a social media. I went to an event the other day that I coached at, and there were 3 social media managers in the room, and there were 12 of us there. And I was like, that's a lot of social media managers, but like every single one of us had a different solution to our problem. One of them was obsessed with video. Another one was brand new and she loved to be on site with people. I have more of a digital agency. So we're not typically on site. We are today, but not typically on site with people. So, that was an interesting perspective where I was like, you need to raise your prices and you need different systems. And she was like, you need an offering where you're in person. And this other girl was like, I love making
Right.
content. I make content for you guys. Like, we all have different strengths. And so I think it's also okay, like, as service providers, like, that's why I think polarizing social works. I don't recommend it for business
Yeah.
owners if you're sensitive or if you're just getting started, because you spend a lot of time defending your opinion, which is like not what I think is helpful for business time.
No. Yeah.
But that's why we like polarizing social, is because it helps us negotiate what we think about people and things. So I think it's
Yeah.
just remembering that, like, you're not going to be for everybody. It's like anything in life, but the
Yeah.
people you are for, you're really going to be for, and then that's awesome.
Yeah. No, I agree. I had I had a client who, this was at the very beginning of like maybe a couple months in, and she fully told me that she decided to reach out to me because I posted a reel where it was kind of like the trending sound of like, oh, it's been a long day, and you're like screaming, and I'm pretending I'm like drinking a glass of wine that's literally just kind of like dribbling everywhere. It's a mess. It's a hot mess. And you just see like my notifications just like, and I remember debating so hard whether to post it or not, because I'm like, I'm going to turn some people off that are from like my corporate world, or
Yeah.
like my previous like, view of the world. And she went with me because of that reel. And then I also realized that she also had this view. I mean, she had swear words in her marketing because she just wanted to be who she was, and people connected with her.
Yeah.
And she has a very successful business, and like her offerings, I don't think she had anything lower than like a $3,000, like service. So, I mean, it just depends. It depends on who you're talking to, and it depends on what level of engagement you need with that certain service provider, or depends if you just value authenticity or not, right? So
100%.
I've learned so much. I've learned so much since starting it out, but I totally agree. I totally agree
I
about
think that
socials
that's
just being a reflection of humanity.
I think that's the best piece of it, is that, like, you're gonna attract different people than I will, and people love real. And even, for example,
Mhm.
like, we had a client one time work with us, and I was like, "Oh, like, why did you choose to work with us?" And I at first I was a little offended with the way she said this, but now I've grown up and I'm a little more wise. But she basically was like, "You just look so real." And I was like, "What does that mean?" And she's like, "You don't wear any makeup, like, you're kinda, like, rough around the edges." And I was like, "Rough around the edges? Like, oh my god." And, like, I was so offended by it, and then I was like, "Okay, I'm back in my dress pants era." Like, she brought me back in. But what she actually meant by that was that, like, I'm not, like, super done up, and I'm very
Right,
casual, and I swear all the time,
right.
and I, like, I'm not telling people to go viral and wear, like, crop
Yeah,
tops and jump on a trampoline, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just, like, I'm telling people to do stuff that
hilarious.
actually works in their business. And so I
Right.
think, like, at the time I was a little like, but again, that's what attracted her to me, was that I was so casual and real. And so
You're
people are
just
gonna love that about me, and then
being
there's
you.
people who are looking for corporate people, and that's fine too, and that's great.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what I realized too, and I think once I kind of stepped away a little bit more off of the corporate idea, because that was my background, I even the types of clients obviously started changing naturally, not like, nothing contentious, nothing negative. It's just slowly it started attracting more people that would work well with me. So I 100% agree. And for the record, I have done many of these episodes with literally no makeup on,
Yeah.
frizzy hair, and just whatever it is I had on, because sometimes working from home is just that, working from home.
It's funny. My business partner and I
Yeah.
were texting there this morning, and I was like, "Oh, like, I have to pop out of our sprint because I have to do a radio interview." And then she was like, "Oh, that's awesome." And she's like, "Did you prepare? Like, what are you gonna wear?" And I was like, "Well, it's the radio, so like, not like too worried about what I'm wearing." But I was like, but from a video perspective, I was like, the brush gave my hair a little brush and I'm ready to go because I wouldn't want to pretend to be anything else that I'm not. And I
Right,
think
right.
for social media, no matter like, like just to wrap for you on that is like for social media, that's what people are looking for. They're not looking for
Yeah,
perfect. They're looking for
yeah,
value. And so
yeah.
if you can provide value to your ideal client, that is 10 times better than you looking super cute and then not doing anything because you're fearful.
Right. Right. It's also, I think we've also evolved a little bit. At first, Instagram, Facebook, it was all about the aesthetics. Facebook was a little bit more personal because you had a personal account too. But I think we're slowly evolving on Instagram from just the aesthetics. And I'm super excited about that because it means that authenticity is being valued more and more, especially with things like, um, let's say parenting, right? That
Mhm.
those are always huge. It's like you can't always be a, you know, um, a perfect parent or a perfect mom. And here I am. I'm like, I'm trying to run a business and I'm also trying to be a mom. And some days I can barely hold it together. And Instagram, for example, was causing a lot of anxiety. But that happens to business owners too, or the people are also overwhelmed. So if they're
Yeah.
seeing always all of the things you're doing wrong, or all the things they're doing wrong, they're not going to feel supported. So I think having those posts where it balances, like, here's me and here's what I should be doing and here's what I'm actually doing and it's okay because I get to do more of this. I think it goes way farther than just like, this is my perfect life, this is my perfect business, this is what I do every single day to achieve. And I hate those posts of like, make 10K a week or whatever the
Yeah.
the timeline might be, right? So I love the authenticity, and we don't always have to be perfectly aesthetic online.
Mhm.
We've got a comment here. Hello, ladies. I hope you're doing well. Hello from Texas. Well, hello, Charles from Texas. Thank you for tuning in. We're
Okay.
both saying hello from Canada.
Mhm.
Thanks for tuning in onto our chat about socials and business and community. And here it is. We also have a community at the radio here at the United Public Radio Network. We have multiple platforms, and this community keeps showing up and up and up, and it's great. And we have many categories. For example, the show is in the lifestyle category, and we have a lot of UFO and paranormal shows as well. They're in their own different category, but the network has been able to build this community on so many different platforms. I think it's amazing, Facebook and YouTube and SoundCloud. So thank you everybody for showing up. I love it. An hour has flown by though.
Going by.
Flown by. So my last question before we wrap up is kind of, as Kristina, as the individual, not as the business owner, not as, the partner, the family member, the person that needs to hold it together for other people. What makes this worth it for you? And what do you do that your your setup allows you to do that brings you joy? For example, for me, it's traveling, right? But what is it that, I get so many random answers and I love it. Like some people are like, I can wake up at 5 a.m. and work out and it sets my day off right. I'm like, wow, that is the last thing that I'd be picking for myself, but I'm so glad that you are happy doing this, right? or they'll say, I can go golfing. And I was like, amazing. I think I've done this like in my life, but it just shows how different we are. So I want to know what makes it worth it to you.
Yeah, I think like day in and day out, like I love the variety and the flexibility. Like I love like I truly believe like I am living my dream life. Like I meet with so many amazing people. I get to connect like
Yeah.
awesome businesses. I know that every business we work with, like it's their heart that they're doing these things. And that's what makes us want to work with them. But for me, it's like the thought of building like a something larger than me for my lifetime, like being able to
Amazing.
create, legacy for my family, but more often, like really just making impact in the time I've got here. Not promise much. So I'm happy to make the most of the days that I've got.
Yes. Oh, I did see, we have a question here from the Leaders Lounge. Philomena has a question. She says, how do you decompress? I just noticed that it's on our Instagram board here.
So cute. Yeah, I would say that that's not like my highest strength of all time is like balance. But what I will say, like what's been
Same.
really, really helpful for me, yeah, like, and I think that's you'll find that like across the board, it's like it's hard to decompress because it does feel
Yeah.
like your business is an extension of who you are. And
Yeah.
but for me, like what's been really helpful in these last few months, especially, is I take a day off every week. And I know that sounds nuts because you're supposed to get 2 days off. But that just like, I mean, day off. Like I don't do anything. Like I'm not grocery shopping. I'm not like seeing a friend. I'm staying indoors and I'm like hanging out with my family. And that's not the
Recharging.
norm. Yeah, that's not the norm for me. So
Right.
yeah, just really taking that time has been really helpful.
Yeah. So thank you so much for the question. That's Leaders Lounge Canada. Philomena. She is also a whiz when it comes to networking and events. So check her out. Thank you for the question. Yeah, I mean, we all kind of struggle to find our ideal, like how do you decompress? How do you make time for yourself? But that's also why I asked the question of what makes this worth it for you, because you end up looking forward to whatever it is that you have, planned or whatever the case may be. But the
Mhm.
flexibility is definitely one of the perks, right? Is there anything fun that you do? Like, do you have a quirky hobby?
Okay, this is like no, and I'm so sad to tell you this because we have this ongoing joke with the social snippet that like if I can't sell it, I won't do it. So it's like
Oh,
if I'm not gonna become a knitter that's gonna make hats like for the blind that like I might be able to sell. It's not a thing that I will do.
I
Um
love that though.
it's so toxic. So I am working on it,
No.
but I will say a lot of my time right now is taken up on the Beverly Hills Housewives.
Oh, okay.
It's
That's
off
good.
brand for
Yeah.
me. It's off brand for me for being so chill, so
Oh,
casual, but
okay.
I love them. I'm obsessed with them.
Oh, amazing. Well, I love that though. If you can't sell it, you won't do it. And that's such a go-getter, like entrepreneur, like
I know.
mindset. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really, really enjoyed this. I really hope that you're going to come back and we can talk about more things. I feel like we could fill many, many hours
Yes,
with
definitely.
all our discussions. And thank you so much for sharing all of your practical, like tangible, realistic advice. We definitely appreciate it. So if anybody is looking to get a hold of Kristina, I'm going to put the banner back up here. You can find her on Instagram at the social snippet. Or if you're looking to look at some of the events here. Oh, I forgot to say too, it's highvibewomen.ca, but you have a promo and it's the thesocialbusinessclub.ca, and you can use the code podcast for your first month off for $1
Yeah.
for your first month to listen in on and to be a part of the membership, correct?
Yep. Yeah, our membership's awesome,
Wonderful.
especially if you're feeling like you don't know where to go with social media and it's feeling like kind of hard. Yeah, definitely join
Yeah,
us. There's an amazing community of 50 people in there. And yeah, we help people build community. We teach you how to do social from A to Z.
amazing. I'm gonna pop the promo in the comments as well, so it's gonna post across the 8 different channels there. And hopefully if people want to use it, they have the socialbusinessclub.ca link out there too. So thank you so much for coming on again. I really appreciate your time. And also thank you so much for the platform, to the United Public Radio Network, and everybody that has a hand in running the platform, and to the chat room. Thank you everybody for showing up. And we will see you guys next week on the United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your week.